Before we get into the new rules and regulations, a quick history lesson for you. 75 years ago, in 1949, the Road Racing Grand Prix World Championship was born, with the 500cc class quickly installing itself as the pinnacle of two-wheeled motorsport. That 500 cubic centimetres engine capacity was the defining factor in the sport's rules, through from the four-strokes in the 50s and 60s, through the screaming two-strokes of the 70s, 80s and 90s, right through to the modern MotoGP era, when the sport wanted to keep the manufacturers involved and interested by allowing road-relevant four-strokes back in. So in 2002, we went from the 500s to 990cc motorcycles and the rebrand of MotoGP. Since then, we've been through 800s to today's 1000cc bikes, even medallions with some production-based engines in the middle, before we get to our newest set of rules, which are set to come in 2027. So what are the headline rule changes? Well, first of all, it's to do with the engine capacity, 850cc, so a 15% reduction, with a maximum cylinder bore of 75mm, that's a 6mm reduction, and one engine less per season, 6 instead of 7. Fuel tanks are going to be limited to 20 litres instead of 22, with fuel coming from 100% sustainable sources. Aerodynamic devices have to be restricted. They'll likely still be around, but they'll have to be shorter and narrower, and the seat section will also be included in those aero rules. At the same time, those pesky ride height devices and hole shot devices will also be completely banned. And finally, perhaps to help the ailing factories or even bring new ones into the sport, motorcycles' GPS data will be available to all other teams. Now that could help a new factory perhaps focus its efforts on where they're losing out. Now, according to championship organisers Dorna, the aim of these new rules is to make the sport safer, more sustainable and even more spectacular. With that 15% reduction in engine capacity then that should equal less speed. And less speed should also mean that there's less downforce, so the aero might not be as effective. Less speed should, in theory, make the sport safer. For me and for many people in the MotoGP paddock, the removal of the ride height devices is the big one. There's a general feeling around here that they are the root, they're the cornerstone of the problems that MotoGP might have on into the future. They're irrelevant for the roads, they definitely make the starts that little bit more unsafe. And it means that riders are exiting and arriving at the next corner that much quicker. Gives you less chance for overtaking, but it also puts a huge amount of stress on the tyres, and that's when we get into those tyre pressure issues that we just don't want to be talking about. Do the majority of fans care that Bagnaia versus Marquez through the stadium section of Jerez, whether they're riding on 1000cc or 850cc motorcycles? I don't know. But the fact is that the atmosphere of glorious old venues like Jerez are starting to get to their limits of viability. And for Jerez, read Mugello, Sachsenring, Misano, some classic old venues where the excessive speeds of MotoGP are bringing their presence onto the calendar into question. Can you tell the difference between a motorcycle travelling at 227 miles an hour versus one that travels at just 207 miles per hour? I know I can't, and I don't think the majority of MotoGP fans either. But does it protect some of our brilliant old racetracks? Does it make the sport safer and the racing more entertaining? I suppose that's the hope we all have. Will the new rules achieve that objective? It's a $1 million question. I suppose we'll have to wait till 2027 to find out for real.